To the stage, I would like to welcome Luukas. He is the Chief Information Officer of the Government of Estonia, another competitor for sure. He's going to be talking about the top priorities and digital services for the next years. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you. We should have had a sparring match where we kind of box with each other. So in a lot of ways, there's a lot of similarity in what I'm going to talk about, but there will be some interesting differences to it. By the way, it sounds like we all have new governments. We had one elected in March. We're all doing new strategies for AI and digital government. So are we. We're going to try and, my deadline says Q1 of 2024. So Norway, I want to compare notes, but we might get done first. So the headline goal we now have is what we're calling building a personalized state. And I'm going to try and explain to you what the idea behind the personalized state is. Quickly, where we're coming from. So, 20 years of digital government, we've got a great ecosystem. Everyone's had an EID for 20 years. 1.5 million authentications and signatures a day across public and private sector. That's for 1.3 million people. So, more than a use per day per person. More than 1,000 entities, most of those private sector connected to X-Road, exchanging data, and that powers a lot of our use of personal data, but also open data. 3,000 e-services, which I will say is way too many, and we're trying to cut that down and consolidate. And the thing everyone else talks about, online elections since 2004. That's the one thing we still do that's really unique in the world. Although I think that the countries that could pull it off besides us, many of them are in this room. And in the most recent elections, more than 50% of voters voted online from their computer from more than 110 countries. Estonia, like Iceland, does not have an embassy in most countries of the world, so that's a real enabler for people to participate in their democracy. But what do you do once you've digitized everything? Where do you go then? For us, it's personalized government, or the personalized state. And there's really two layers for us about what that's about. On one level, it's a service quality concept. The idea that, you as a citizen and as a business, that you should have government services come to you when you need them, in the form you need them, when and where you need them, in a way that's really convenient, that doesn't get in your way, that's easy to use. But on a more fundamental level, it's actually about solving this basic challenge that all of our social welfare states have right now, which is how do we use the resources we have, or even reducing resources, considering our demographics, the climate challenges we have, the unpredictability we might have, to achieve better outcomes? And how can all the data, the automation, all these tools we've built serve that goal? The first thing we're starting with, surprise, is what's everyone else talked about? Life event services. We're doing that too. Here's our list. Jarkko has more in Finland, so we're going to copy your list. What I will say is the first couple of ones we've done have been marriage and childbirth. Marriage, 97 NPS. 97, really popular service. We haven't launched divorce yet, and I don't think the NPS for divorce is going to be quite as high. But we'll see. I won't talk a lot about life events. It's basically the same thing everyone else is doing, but a quick point or two. This is a mapping, it's in Estonian, sorry, of all of the different services that you have to that are part of having a child, starting from before you've discovered you're pregnant, while you're pregnant, birth, after birth, across 8 different government agencies. And the color codes are the ones that are in good shape, the ones that need significant work, the ones that really need work, and then a couple services that aren't really relevant to this. And really what doing life event services is about is it's a radically different approach to product management and service management in the public sector. It's very labor intensive and it's very expensive. So this isn't something that's easy to do because you really have to get together all the civil servants, all the agencies, and get them to think collectively about how you deliver that service. And what that looks like right now is, for instance, for childbirth, it's a website. It consolidates things. It consolidates links. Over time, it's going to turn into a single place to do all the things in the service. This is kind of nifty. You put in the date of your child's birth, your predicted date of the child's birth, and then it kind of tells you when the different benefits you have and the events that should occur, ought to occur. But it's not enough to do cool. It's not enough to do cool services in the public sector. We also want the private sector to build really interesting services on top of the data and the platforms we have. To do that, they need the data. And so one of the things we've built recently is a consent management service that allows users to give, review, and withdraw their consent for data sharing with private sector service providers. So for instance, when I was applying for a home loan last year, I gave, and this is from my dashboard, I gave the bank consent to access my tax returns instead of me having to upload a bunch of data about my income. And that was for a limited period, for a couple of months while while I was applying for the home loans. I could have withdrawn it at any time. And we're doing similar things, especially in healthcare, where the whole future of personalized medicine requires personal data. There's a lot of government data that we also, for instance, have on your environmental footprint, or from which you can derive information about your footprint, where we're trying to give, or we want to give this data to services that will help you reduce your footprint and reduce the costs associated with it. So this is really important about setting up a platform for how the private sector uses all the data assets we're stewarding for our citizens. Of course, you also want to know and have transparency over what the government is doing with your data. So we've had for many, many years a data tracker. But, and this, it's kind of scary sometimes to see who public and private sector has access to your data. One of the things that we're going to be rolling out soon is push notifications. So every time someone looks at your data, you can get a push notification on the phone. It might be pretty annoying. I think most people won't turn it on, but some will. And that brings us to the question of phones, because it's nice. We have a portal like everyone else does. We've renewed the design language and we're consolidating stuff and it's all good, but that's not where most of our users are. They're on mobile devices. And it's kind of embarrassing. The iPhone was launched in 2007, and basically we've all done government apps in the last couple of years. And in this case, I got to say, Andre, you were ahead of us. So congratulations to Iceland, and I think Denmark also has some stuff. We currently have been piloting an Estonian government app. We decided that we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so we've worked a lot with Ukraine, who I'd say has the best government app in the world right now. And they started their transformation journey a couple of years ago, learning a lot from us to do this pilot. And what we're really focused on is places where mobile apps as a platform can do things that websites can't. So location-based events, notifications, not yet, but as we start doing more AI, on-device compute that lets you have some amount of AI computation without having to move the data to a service provider. And of course, dematerialized documents, which again, Iceland, congratulations, you have beat us. And a very important service, which technically is a different app right now for security reasons, that we hope to launch in May of 2024, which is finally bringing voting to the mobile platform. So we hope to have, to be the first and only, unfortunately so far, country also doing mobile voting for the European Parliament elections next year. But here's the thing. This is all good and important, and I would almost say today having a good app is table stakes. I don't want us to miss the next UX revolution by 16 years. So what we've been working on is what we call bureaucrat. It's a pun. Krait is a sort of Estonian mythical creature. They're kind of elves that run off and do tasks for you, but if you don't task them right, they'll kind of create difficulty. So a bureaucrat is a bureaucrat. It works in Estonian. It doesn't really work in English. But the idea, on one level is to have conversational interfaces. But what we've built is a stack that makes conversational interfaces work across devices, across different forms of interaction, voice, text and messaging, of course. In the future, maybe neural links. And then below that does all the service interactions, so translating natural human interactions into defined service interactions. And this is a challenge, by the way, everyone doing chatbots in government has had, which is the world, especially now with LLMs, of what AI can do is creative and broad and undefined. The world of government services is defined in law, clear criteria, very deterministic. So how do we bring that together? We haven't figured that engineering challenge out. But the idea really is that for whatever happens next in UX, it could be VR glasses, it could be that we're all talking with avatars, we don't know. We'll have a stack there where we can take what has to happen for a government service and put the potentially private sector provided services on top and talk to you, in natural language, in whatever form, in Estonian, work with people who have disabilities, interact with them in whatever way is needed. Also, by the way, perhaps the most important channel will be over the phone. So people actually who aren't comfortable with digital devices and services can have a natural language human interaction over the phone the way they would with a person, but again, 24/7, scalable, and so on. And that brings us to AI. We've got our pilots that we've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years, like everyone else does. and this is just a random selection here, it's been a lot of point solutions so far. AI solving this problem, AI solving that problem. They've definitely shown value. But part of the problem is that these are all just pilots. Now we have to figure out how we make this sustainable and how we make this work in the long run. And the other bit, of course, is AI is moving incredibly quickly. We now are in the era of generative AI, and that means we need to set the sights higher than just some efficiency gains or slightly better decisions for what we're doing. So this brings us back to personalized services. And what we're putting together as part of this concept of the personalized state is plans in some key areas. This is not an exhaustive list, where we really can use AI and what now generative AI and large language models will let us do to change how we provide the service and do a whole bunch of new things. So healthcare, personalized medicine, there's a lot of stuff there around combining the genetic and the health data we have to just give people better care. But again, letting a digital twin go out there and discover new ways and come up with new ways that might improve your wellness, suggest to you different kind of interventions. In education, we all know that pedagogy doesn't work. For most people, different learning styles and so on. So how can we give people tailored individual learning pathways? We talked a bit about how data can help reduce environmental footprint, again, connecting that to AI, making recommendations, working on the long tail of little interventions that add up into big changes. Letting people have sort of a lot more control over how they manage their pensions and their savings and how they plan their income. And also something like legal assistance. This last one is kind of interesting. We have fed in all Estonian laws and administrative decisions and so on into, trained an LLM on those. And it's now, when you ask it a question like, I had an accident, what should I do? It's looking at all of that and giving you advice. And it's different advice to what a lawyer might give you or to what the kind of standard boilerplate article on what to do if you've gotten into an accident might give you, because it's actually looking at the totality of the data. So what we kind of see is that as we do this, how the state functions and delivers public services is going to change. There's some challenges. How do we think about equal treatment if we no longer have the exact same service being delivered to everyone? What about procedural and administrative justice? Obviously, this has to be transparent. It has to be accountable. That goes without saying. So this is early days, but this is where we think things are going. And again, what's at stake is the future of the welfare state. Finally, I want to talk about the strategic and the leadership level, which is this all is only going to work if the people responsible for services and the strategic outcomes of government really get it. So for us, the digital leader in government is the head of every agency, the minister of every ministry. We put a lot of time into training our senior management to understand all the layers of digital transformation. We're expecting from this year every government department to have a sort of an end-to-end digital transformation strategy for their department that connects all the different layers, UX, data, security, technology, architecture, environmental footprint, to their business KPIs. And these are our KPIs. So we've got two sets of KPIs. One is the horizontal ones. And for now, really simple metric, user satisfaction. We don't now, but we're going to have an NPS for every public service. The numbers, they still have a lot of space to go from when we started in 2019. By the way, better for individuals than for businesses. So we've thought about UX for individuals. For companies who've kind of said, screw it, bad interface, too much data, too many questions, that's your problem. That's changing. There's another KPI that's really, really important. It's a single number, 4%. 4% is the percentage of internet users in Estonia who have refrained from communicating with public sector institutions or service providers via the internet due to trust and security concerns. And the KPI is very simple. This number cannot grow. So the number's the baseline's 4%, the target for 2030 is 4%, and that kind of encapsulates in a single measurable way all these questions around digital trust, around transparency and fairness, and how we engage with the public, how we communicate. This is the output, right? How does it affect users' behavior and people's interaction with their services? I have no clear strategy for how we keep this, in the sense that one fuck up, could turn that into 40% pretty quickly. So but that's the goal. And then, of course, there are the strategic KPIs of every department in government. This is kind of a visualization that we have of all of our kind of strategic goals in government. And the point, of course, is all the things we've talked about, they shouldn't just make convenient services. Like, we're not just here to have a nice service concept. We're here, as the minister said, to make life better. And so we have to be able to give a pretty convincing story on how all the money we're spending centrally and across the government is actually leading to these outcomes. And if it's not, then we should give the money to someone else. Finally, I'm going to go over time by about a minute and a half. I want to talk about collaboration. Because Estonia is a country of 1.3 million people, we can't do this alone. First of all, there's a very specific thing I want to plug here. You guys know about this. Iceland's a co-owner, and Andri sits on the board with me, of something called the Nordic Institute for Interoperability Solutions. Right now, we have one big product, and that's X-Road, which Iceland, Finland, and Estonia procure and develop together. We're working on a second one, which is some open source components for e-delivery, and we're thinking about more. The vision I think that we have is we across the Nordics and Baltics, we're building the same products and services. We basically are working with the same regulations, the same kinds of data. Let's build more of our solutions together. And there's a cost-saving element, but there's also we're all sitting in the same room coming up with the requirements together. We actually build better products element. And we make this stuff available open source. So X-Road has 20 plus countries across the world running it. Let's do the same thing for wallets, for consent tracking, for a whole bunch of this sort of tech that's very government specific, but that if we build it together, we can actually not just help the 8 of us, but help the rest of the world build better governments. One way how we're doing that is through something called GovStack. This is a sort of global UN initiative where we are making some tech components open source, globally available. They're built really for the requirements of developing countries, but oftentimes that works across the world. GovStack, I will say, its weakness compared to what we're doing in Nice is there's a lot of different participants. It's designed by committee, very important. Finally, got to talk about Europe. A lot of good is happening. I think that one of the things that's going to come to fruition in the next couple of years is a single digital gateway. 20 services will work across all European countries, so filling your prescriptions, sending data when you're moving. It's going to come later than the initial deadline was. These European things take time, but over time, they are going to get better. But I do think that what we're doing here in this region can move much faster than what we're doing with the whole of the EU. And with that, I guess I want to say thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for the sort of positive rivalry and the mutual reinforcement we have. There's so much learning back and forth. And all I can say is I look forward to having more. I wish good luck to Andri's successor. I hope that we have a few things that inspire you, because you're doing some things that inspire us, and let's keep at it. Thank you.